What's the weirdest thing you experienced that you cannot rationally explain? When I was younger, I was staying at a friend's house. His parents made him take piano lessons, so they had a piano in their living room. From the basement, around midnight, we heard a short little melody, 5 seconds, play on the piano. His parents did not play, and we did not hear anyone walking around upstairs. Scared the crap out of both of us. My only explanation is that his cat jumped on it and coincidentally played something pleasing. Seems hard to believe though. My childhood fever dream is hard to describe, but it absolutely terrifies me. It's like there's some kind of loud horrifying sound, like the loudest, most unpleasant, inhuman, extreme sound you've ever heard, and it's so loud that is literally crushing me. I think it manifests like bricks or blocks or something. Like it's so loud, the sound takes a physical form. In the dream, I find myself in a weird bleak empty space, and there's usually one single flower in the ground. When I see the flower, that's when I know the loud sound is about to crush me. But I never die from being crushed. I just suffer endlessly. It lasts a long time and it's horrible. I still have that dream once in a while. I wake up completely panicked and disoriented, and it takes me a long time to recover. In high school I was at a friend's house with another friend, and we had just gotten ready and were waiting for her parents to get home to take us to the movies. We were sitting on her bed with her door closed, and we all heard the front door open and close, and then her stepdad yell all three of our names like he always does when he gets home. We all start getting our stuff together and walk out into the living, but we don't see him. We are confused and look out front and his truck isn't home. So I called him, and he said that they were about 10 minutes away. We have no clue how or what that was, but it was clear as day, and we just ran back in her room and locked the door until they got home. There was no one in the house that they could find, and the front door was locked with the alarm on. I had this strange feeling in my body an entire day that something really bad had happened. It got so intense at one point that I basically got up from my chair and firmly told myself, cut this bullshit. Nothing bad has happened today. My mom's phone started to ring a few hours later, and she called for me to come out of my room after the call. She then told me my grandmother had just been found dead in her bed. To this day, I can't wrap my head around any of it, and people never believe me when I tell them about it. I can only see two logical explanations. One is that it's all just a coincidence, though a pretty creepy one. The second is that it might not have happened the way I remember it. Perhaps the shock I got upon hearing of my grandmother's passing twisted my mind. My grandmother passed back in 2015. I still miss her like crazy. When I was a kid, my parents would fix up houses for our landlord. He would lower our rent however much work they did. One house they worked on was an old morgue turn home. Some of the rooms were full of dirt, which I never understood. They were at the end of fixing it up, and they stayed late to paint the bathroom. I slept on the floor of the living room while they worked in the bathroom because I had school the next day. I never slept that night. I could clearly hear a piano playing through the floor. I didn't even know there was a piano down there at the time. I told my parents and they brushed it off. The next day we went over for the last time to pick up trash and do the tiny details. My mom sent me to the basement to collect cans. Apparently the family were drunks. Well, in the basement was a piano in the center of a dirt room. I started picking up cans and that's when it began. The piano began to play, and I looked back to find a man playing the freaking piano. He started calling me to play the piano with him, and that he wasn't going to hurt me. He wanted to show me a song. I screamed, ran out the basement, never returned inside that house. I told mom, and she went to investigate, finding nobody in the basement. Our landlord told mom we could keep the piano if we wanted it, to which she told him absolutely not. She did, however, ask if the piano played on its own like an electric piano. He informed her that no, it was an old classic piano that had been there since the place was a morgue, but worked like a charm. He did get told by the previous tenants that they swore it would play on its own, but he didn't believe in ghost. Was my imagination that wild, or did I encounter a ghost? It's been something that will never be answered or explained, but it defiantly freaked me out as a kid. So, this happened to me a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. Important background first. When I have sleep paralysis, I don't ever have visions or anything like that. There's no demon in the corner, nothing. I'm aware of what's going on around me. For instance, if someone else is in the room watching TV, I can hear them, and the TV, and identify the sounds, but I just can't move. So, the other night, I woke up with sleep paralysis. As I was lying there, I heard my bedroom door open. This was unsettling, because I live alone in my apartment. I heard footsteps as someone walked to my bed. Then I felt someone kiss me on my temple. As soon as they drew back, my paralysis broke, and I sat up to see that no one was there. This happened to have occurred a few days after a longtime family friend passed away. I thought maybe it was him coming to say goodbye, because I wasn't able to see him before his death, as it was somewhat sudden. Maybe this is totally normal for sleep paralysis and I just happen to have never experienced it before in that way. And maybe I just conflated it with my friend's passing, because I was grieving, and it made me feel better. But it felt extremely real to me, and I'm still thinking about it. I have literally never told anyone this, but always wondered about a sleep paralysis experience I had. I was in my dorm, sleeping in my roommate's bed, while she was out with her room door open. Having her room door open allowed me to see the entrance to our dorm. I heard someone walk in and quickly duck on the floor, and knew that he/she was crawling towards me. I assumed it was my roommate trying to get me back, because I'd always hide behind doors or scream really loud and scare her. I soon got the vibe it wasn't my roommate, and not even human really, even though it was human form. I started freaking out, and was highly afraid cause I knew whatever it was going to reach the side of the bed I was lying down on. My brain tried to figure out a solution to make this a non-threatening situation, so when it finally leapt up towards me in my subconscious mind, I assume, made out with it. As soon as I let go I was now awake, able to move and alone. Strange. Weird. Freaked up. I don't know dude, it was weird. I don't know any real features of it, except that it was dark, and we did make out. Typing it now sounds funny now but still confuses the crap out of me. If you are ever having sleep paralysis, try to either wrinkle your nose, raise one eyebrow, or if you can, wiggle your ears. These things are the easiest to pull off during an episode, and more often than not it will wake you up. For the longest time I always fought to move my arms or my legs, and I would be totally convinced I did it. Then it felt like the whole world started sliding, and I realized my arm was still in that exact same spot, and I never moved it. And this would happen over and over and over, while each time I truly thought I had moved the limb I was trying to. But then someone suggested the ones I mentioned in the beginning, and they work much better. It's a lot easier to convince those smaller parts of my body to move as opposed to trying to get all the muscles in the arm to move, when with the face there's only a couple muscles involved. Doesn't work every time, but I have a much higher success rate with that than the arms or legs. I hope this helps. My grandpa passed away when I was 6 years old. We were very close as I was the only grandchild, and he was retired, so we spent every day together while my mom worked. I remember vividly being in the car with my mom on the way to my grandma's house after my grandpa had passed, and hearing him say "I love you sugar plum," which was what he always called me. My mom tells the story a little differently. She was obviously driving and got this feeling like she was being watched, and instantly thought of my grandpa, her dad. She looked in the backseat at me and saw my foot start to bounce. She asked what made me so happy. I said, "My papa just said he loved me." She had to pull over. We never discussed this until a few years ago. I'm 27 now. I've lost 2 other grandparents since then, and never had another moment like this. But once was enough for me to remember forever. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I regularly have nightmares, and will be awoken from them by my daughter knocking on my bedroom door in the middle of the night, saying she has just woken up scared from a nightmare, which I thought was a weird coincidence. I don't tell her about it, because I don't want it to freak her out, or influence her in any way. We don't watch any scary TV, barely watch TV or movies at all. That would influence us both having a scary dream on the same night. But it gets a little more strange. Last month I had a dream that my son, 7-year-old daughter's twin bro, was in our backyard, but our backyard was flooded. I was trying to get him to wade over to me because I thought I saw a very large snake in the water. All of a sudden I see that son has been bitten, and I'd go chasing after the snake because it seems like the logical answer is to see what kind of snake it is, to see if I can tell if it is poisonous or not, to maybe rush into a hospital. IDK. I find the snake in the water and I'm suddenly really confused because I realize it's not a snake, it's a huge eel. Then there's a knock on my bedroom door and I wake up. Daughter says she had a bad dream. I walk her back to bed and sit with her for a while and ask if she'd like to talk about it before laying back down. She usually feels better doing so. She said she had a dream that our whole yard was flooded and there was a huge eel in the water and it was really scary. I did not tell her about my dream. I have never been known to talk in my sleep. We did not watch anything on TV or talk about eels or snakes. We both like snakes and are not afraid of them. We had not had any recent heavy rain, nor had that yard ever flooded. We spent most of that day apart, her at school, me at work. There have been other instances of this, but this one was the most specific. I guess my daughter and I have a weird dream connection.